Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for logging in to listen. You're all familiar with Education USA, and so I wanted to give you a briefing today that would discuss the 5 steps to study in the United States, which you can also find on the Education USA website, and get you on your way to studying in the US. Okay, so today we're going to take a look at each of those 5 steps. We'll talk about the opportunities available for international students, the application process, and ways to find funding for your studies. Then I will tell you all the steps you need to take to apply for a student visa to the US. And then finally, we'll finish the discussion with things you need to know as you prepare for your departure. The first step is determining what you would like to study in the US. Maybe you'd like to get an associate's degree, or perhaps you're interested in pursuing a graduate degree. Maybe you work for a multinational firm and would like to improve your English language skills. There are over 3,000 colleges and universities in the United States, public and private institutions, 2-year and 4-year universities, low-cost community colleges, and religiously affiliated schools. Though there are many programs available, don't be overwhelmed. These questions can help you narrow down which institutions would be a good fit for your particular educational goals. We suggest you start your research at least 12 months prior to when you hope to enroll in your program. For graduate school, you should probably start 2 years prior. That way you'll have ample time to complete these 5 steps that we're talking about today. Okay, after you narrow down those school choices, it's time to start your application process. Application packages require a great deal of preparation and planning, especially if you're applying for undergraduate or graduate school. You'll benefit by starting the process and applying early. Every school requires a different set of application materials, but most include the following items and the ones you can see on the slide. An application form. I think most schools now have electronic applications. More than 350 schools accept what's called the common application. This allows you to complete the form once, and then you can make copies for submission to each separate school for those participating schools. Your education credentials, this is your high school diploma, official transcripts, an original transcript or certified copy that's sent by your secondary school or your high school is required for each institution. Your standardized test scores, they may be required, not in all cases, but in many are required to assess your academic ability and your English proficiency level. Recommendation letters, these are letters from the head or principal of your school, school counselor, if you have a personal tutor, particular teachers, maybe sponsors from extracurricular activities that you participate in, coaches or supervisors from different work experiences you've had can write recommendation letters for you. Those recommenders must be able to write about your work and to be able to assess your potential to do well in pursuing a higher education degree. So be sure to choose someone who knows you well and also can write well. I think most schools require some sort of personal statement or essay. This is your chance to write about what you're interested in and what you're good at. This is often considered one of the most important aspects of the application. English language program applications vary, but most of them require completion of secondary education or high school and proof that you can pay the full cost of the program. Once you've been accepted to a university or college, you need to work with the international student advisor at that school to get an I-20 form. The I-20 is a form issued by the school with authorization from the US Department of Homeland Security. The form contains information about the proposed length of your enrollment, the estimated annual cost of the school tuition and fees, and your proposed field of study. The original signed I-20 will be sent to you from the school. If you apply for an exchange program, instead of getting the I-20, you'll be getting a DS 2019 form. Financing the education is one of the most important things that you're going to need to think about in this process. You need to remember all the different pieces that go into it. It's not only the tuition and fees from the school. A lot of times in paying for books and supplies, you will have to break that out separately. And You also obviously have your living expenses, which can add up to quite a bit. You can see the numbers on the slide. Programs can get to be a very, very expensive proposition. If you don't have the personal funds that you need to pay for the program, financial assistance is available. Student loans are designed for students to defer payment until after graduation. There are many types of scholarships available, including government-sponsored scholarships, private scholarships, university scholarships for academic or athletic achievement. The websites that are listed here are resources where you can explore student loan and scholarship options that are available to you. The Association of International Educators estimates that international students studying in the United States in the years 2010 and 11 received a total of $7.7 billion in financial assistance in those years. Whatever you do, don't let the costs keep you from applying. You'll have to figure out how to cover the costs, but there are ways available to do it, and many students are able to do just that. Okay, once you're accepted into a school, you're ready to apply for a student visa. You need to be accepted into the school, receive your I-20 or DS 2019, and have decided how you're going to fund your studies and actually set up the system that you'll use to fund them. Remember, as we're discussing before, apply as early as possible. However, remember that the earliest we can issue you a visa is 120 days before your school's registration date. If you apply before that date, what will happen is we'll hold your application until we reach the time when we can issue the visa. Before you apply, make sure you understand which type of visa you should apply for. There are 3 types of student visas. The F1 is the most common type of student visa. It's for students who will study at a U.S. college or university, or study English as a second language at a university or language institute. The J1 is for exchange visitors participating in a high school or university program. J1 visitors require the DS 2019 form instead of the I-20. The M1 is for people who want to study non-academic or vocational training in the U.S. And there are also what we call the derivative visas. Derivative visas are for spouses and children of students. And so that would be either an F2, a J2, or an M2 visa. Start the application process by checking your passport. It must be valid until 6 months after you will return to Kazakhstan. You also have to have a blank page available to get the visa in the passport. Next, you need to have a photograph to submit with your visa application. The photograph needs to be an unaltered professional photo. The background must be white and the photos must measure 5 centimeters by 5 centimeters. This means no webcam photos, no Photoshop, no personal portraits. Only professional photos on a white background are acceptable. The next step is to go online and complete an electronic application. This application is called the DS-160. You need to answer all questions correctly and honestly. Then you pay the application fee, which is $160. The application fee can be paid online with a credit card at ustraveldocs.com or in person with tenge, not US dollars, at Halik Bank. The Department of Homeland Security requires student or exchange visitors to pay a SEVIS fee. Visit ice.gov/SEVIS, so that's ice.gov/SEVIS, for more information about what the SEVIS fee is and how to pay it. Okay, now you can schedule an appointment for an interview. You need to pay the application fee before you can schedule the appointment. And you can schedule that online at ustraveldocs.com. On the day of the interview, you should arrive at the embassy in Nur-Sultan or the consulate in Almaty. First, you will go through a security screening before you're escorted into the waiting room. Then you'll need to submit your documents and fingerprints. After that, you will wait in the waiting room to be called for an interview with the consular officer. Remember, for most of you, this interview will be in English because for the majority of student programs, English language proficiency is a requirement. That is not true for English as a second language courses, obviously, but for most of them, don't be surprised when you need to do the interview in English. On the day of the interview, these documents are required, and you can see them listed here. Passport, photo, I-20 or DS 2019, the confirmation of your completed DS 160, receipts for the visa fee and the SEVIS fee, your school transcripts, and your scores from standardized tests. Please note that to be qualified, you must prove to the consular officer that you have a residence outside the United States that you do not intend to abandon, you intend to depart the U.S. after your program is complete, and you have sufficient funding to cover your school and living costs for the duration of your study. If you meet all the qualifications for the visa, then the visa will be approved. The consular officer will sign your DS 2019 or return the I-20 to you, and you'll need to keep that with you because you'll need it in order to enter the United States. You'll have to show it at the border at passport control. A visa will be printed and placed in your passport and returned to you by our courier service, usually on the next business day, but certainly within a couple of days. Now you've got your visa in hand, you're ready to go to the United States to study. But before you go, make sure you understand how your student visa works. First, the visa does not guarantee entry into the United States. The visa does allow foreign citizens to travel to a U.S. port of entry and request permission from a U.S. immigration officer to enter the country. When you're granted permission to enter the U.S. on a student visa, you will usually be admitted for the duration of your student status. That means you may stay as long as you are a full-time student, even if the F1 visa in your passport expires while you're in the United States. This is important, and I think something that a lot of people don't understand. Don't confuse the expiration date with the authorized length of your stay in the US. The expiration date on the visa is the last day that you may request permission to enter the US. It is not the last day that you are allowed to be in the US. If you depart the country, you will have to request re-entry before the expiration date or apply for a new visa. Okay, so one way to prepare for your departure is to understand what is going to be expected of you when you arrive at school. It's important to keep in mind that you will be expected to appear in class on time, every time. The university system is exam-based with midterm and final exams during each term, with quizzes and tests and homework assignments in between. You are expected to complete your assignments on time and show up for exams. Cheating at school and committing crimes are not tolerated. If you're caught cheating while attending university, you may be asked to leave and risk losing your student visa. If you commit a crime, you risk losing your eligibility to seek future entry into the United States. Ultimately, you're responsible for yourself while you're in the US. During the first year of study, international students are only allowed to work 20 hours per week and only on campus. During the first year, students are not allowed to work off campus. After the first year, you can continue to work on campus or you can request to work off campus. In order to do that, you will need to apply through the Department of Homeland Security, and you will need to provide a legitimate reason why it is necessary for you to work during your studies. The International Student Office at your school can help you with this process. Remember, you will only be able to work a maximum of 20 hours per week, either on or off campus. So you can go to www.uscis.gov for more information about working as a student. All right, well, thank you for your time today. I hope that what I've gone through so far has managed to answer some of the questions that you have. If you're still curious and you want to look more at the 5 steps, then you should visit the Education USA website. It's there on the screen. And you can visit the other official websites that you see there for information about the visa process or to submit specific questions that you may have.
Great. So we have enough good questions in the chat box. I can read them for you. The first question is from Aiganum. She's asking, if my passport expires in 2023, but my program will end only in 2025, should I renew it?
Yes, I would suggest that you do renew that passport. What I was saying before applies only to the visa. So your visa to enter the US, the time that's covered on the visa is the time for when you will try to enter, but your passport will need to be valid for the entire period of time.
Saganduk is asking about English language courses. So he's gonna to open a new speaking class, and his employer is supporting him to go to the United States for ESL course. And he's asking what kind of documents should he present from his employer to go to US for language school.
The important documents to have are actually the ones that we've already talked about. If you have a document from your employer that will vouch for the fact, for example, if the employer will be paying the cost, that might be helpful for you to have. You will certainly want to list your employer as your sponsor if the employer is going to be paying, and you definitely need to be prepared to talk to the consular officer about that. Having the document is not the most important thing you need to be focused on, but if it makes you feel more confident to have it, then certainly bring it with you.
So we have several questions regarding the dates for an interview in Nur Sultan and in Almaty for F1 and G1 visa, because we have several students asking that they have the beginning of their study like program in the United States is mid-August, but the interview date is available only for September. So they are concerned, will it be available for them? Like, will the interview dates available in August? So that's
Actually, the pandemic situation has made this much worse because in order to maintain safe social distancing conditions in the waiting room in both the consulate and the embassy, we've been required to vastly lower the number of appointments that are available. And I know that everybody's seeing the effects of that when they go on and try to make an appointment. Unfortunately, right now, I'm not going to be able to provide you anything beyond what's available in the appointment system now. I will say that the situation is changing constantly because as we have opportunity, we open new slots, we change priorities between different types of visas for which appointments are available. So for one thing, keep checking the site. As you get closer to your start date, when you're within 60 days, you can actually qualify to request an emergency appointment. So you may want to think about that. There are relatively few things that we will consider bona fide emergency appointments, but you can apply for that once you get within 60 days of your start date. But do remember to continue checking because slots do open from time to time. It's very difficult to predict, so make sure you're keeping an eye on it.
I think we also had questions that students from Russia left in the registration form, and they were also asking about the appointing emergency interview for non-resident students. So how it can be? Is it available to make that?
If you're a Russian citizen, if you're residing in Russia, you will need to choose a non-resident slot in order to make your appointment. The resident slots are reserved for citizens of Kazakhstan or people who actually reside in Kazakhstan. So, of course, that includes Russians who have residency permits and are living in Kazakhstan as well. Don't sign up for a resident slot. Don't attempt to do that. If that works for you, when you come to the interview, you will find out that we will send you out to make a non-resident appointment. So don't try to do that. So that's I mean the answer is really kind of simple on the non-resident appointments. You have to wait for those to come available.
We also have some question from the Russian citizen. She's asking that I already have an appointment in Kazakhstan for September, but my program starts in August. Does it contradict any rules for me to register in Russia as well and request an expedited appointment there in June?
You can apply at any post in the world, but you will have to pay the machine readable visa fee in order to attempt to schedule an appointment. So if you're able to interview in Russia before you are able to get to your interview in Kazakhstan, feel free to do that. You should cancel the appointment that you do not use once you're sure that you won't go, so that someone else could make that appointment. But you can certainly, if you're able to get in Russia earlier, you're free to do that.
So this is, I guess, a very popular question that our students ask a lot. Is it true that now, due to pandemic situation, students are allowed to present an electronic copy of I-20?
The DSO, or the designated school officials from your university, can electronically send the form to you via email. And you can print that out. That will have the signature of the DSO on it. So you don't have to get the original copy in the mail from them. They can email it to you.
So this is also one of the popular questions, and I think that students should know about. Anton asks, I have F1 visa. Can I change educational entity before entering US? Can I enter US with new I-20? I need to change my school.
If you're outside the US and then you're going to change your school and then enter the US, you will have to get a different visa. Yeah, I mean, I say a different, but you'll have to get a new visa, is what I mean.
Okay, so he cannot enter the US with a visa he already got, right?
Right. I mean, if you've changed your school, because the visa will refer specifically to the school, and it will have your SEVIS account information. So if you change that while you're outside the US, then you'll have to get a different visa.
So here is like some specific situation. A year ago, I fell ill with tuberculosis, and a month ago I recovered. However, the hospital said that I would still be registered for about a year. I was admitted to the US Berkeley, and if I want to go this year, will I get a visa in this case?
There are a lot of factors that are considered in a decision about a visa. On the visa application, there's a question regarding communicable diseases of public health significance. So you should answer the question truthfully and explain the circumstances of it in the space that's provided, and be prepared to explain to the consular officer at the interview what the situation is. Provide any documentation you have that might also help to explain it.
Alina is asking if I'm doing investments, does it count as working hours? I guess she's asking about can she work with F1 visa?
I'm not exactly sure I understand what exactly this means, but if you, I'm assuming that that would be something that would be part of off-campus, your 20 hours off-campus employment that you could request to get. And through the request process, you'd have to be very specific about what the job is and what exactly you'll be doing. You'd have to go through that process in order to establish exactly what you can do.
We also have a question regarding the online classes. So can F1 visa be issued if classes are going to be 100% virtually due to COVID-19?
So earlier on, several months back during the pandemic, there was a regulation that said that 100% online classes would not be allowed, would not be permitted for a student visa. Since that time, that rule has been relaxed. What I think the proper process to go through is to work with your school, and if they are able to issue you an I-20 and set up your SEVIS account, then the program that they're providing you with the I-24 or the DS 2019 is in line with the rules. It's a little bit harder to understand than it was before, but the rules are more lax. And what you need to know is if you're admitted to a school and they give you an I-20, that means that the program is in compliance.
So again, we have a question regarding the I-20, the electronic version of I-20. Just want to clarify that the student is asking, should I request hard copy of I-20 when I come to interview? So you said that electronic version works, right?
Right, you will need to bring a hard copy with you, but you don't have to bring the hard copy that was the original sent in the mail to you from the school. You can receive it in email and print it, but you need to do that. You need to bring a printed version to the interview with you.
Okay, so we also have a question from Abai. He's saying that, can I change general consulate from Almaty to Nur Sultan for an interview, even though I mentioned interview placed as an Almaty?
You should be able to change that. You'll have to do it through the website.
Let us continue with the other questions as we have a lot of questions right here. So we have, again, a lot of questions from the Russian citizen. They're asking, can non-resident apply for emergency interview? So you said that they can do that, right? They should go to their website where like non-resident information is mentioned, and from that place they can book the interview.
Right. I see the question that asks how long to stay in Kazakhstan. Resident in Kazakhstan means you live there. It means that is where your permanent address is. So don't try to game the system by staying for some period of time and then showing up for an interview.
So we have a question from Ulana. She's asking, in 2018, my school sent me and the other 40 students from Kazakhstan to US for 2 weeks. That was a standard Stanford program. Everyone received B1 and the B2 visa for 1 year, but mine expires in 10 years. Is it possible for me to use it, and can I still use this visa to travel to the US?
Okay, well, this isn't a student visa question. I don't think. If you're asking if you can use the B1, B2 visa to go in order to go to school, the answer to that is no. As far as using the B1, B2 for a tourist trip or whatever, yes, if you haven't reached the expiration date yet, then that visa is still valid.
Yeah, we have a question from Janar. She's asking, she's checking the website for the interview and for the other non-immigrant visa. So she's saying that she cannot find dates for J1 visa. There are only for F1 visa. So she's asking why J1 visa dates are not available, and when will it be?
As I said during the briefing, I'm not able to tell you anything that you don't see on the website. The appointments that you see there are the ones that are available. I can't tell you, oh, yes, you can get a J1 tomorrow. You have to look on the site. I don't know what appointments are available and when. As for why there aren't particularly any J1s available right now, it's probably because the slots that were available for them were filled up. But again, there's nothing I can do right now to create you a slot. You will need to go through the website.
So I'm reading a couple of questions from the registration form that students left. So one of the good questions, I think, what are specific circumstances when the student receives a reject for visa, like common denials for a student visa rejection?
Those students who are rejected are those that are not able to prove to the consular officer those things that I was talking about earlier. So you need to prove to the consular officer that you do not intend to abandon your residence outside the US, that you intend to leave the US at the conclusion of your program, and that you will be able to cover your program and your living costs, and also that you will abide by all the requirements of the visa class.
So we also have a question regarding ESL short-term language program. Are there any specific requirements due to pandemic to applicants who want to attend short-term language program? I've heard that the refusal rate to such applicants is higher as the language program are not considered as an essential travel.
The pandemic has not changed any of the requirements that you would need to meet in order to get into and get a visa to go to an ESL program. Those are the same requirements. That is not changed by the pandemic.
And we also have a question, right? If I'm planning to go to study in the US, but I want to take my family with me, should my children come to the interview with me too?
So your spouse and your children can apply for F2 visas to accompany you, and that's what they should do if the intention is for them to live with you. They should apply for their F2 visas at the same time that you're applying for your F1. If you're talking about only that they would come visit you, it's possible that they could do that with B1, B2 visas, but that's not appropriate if they're going to be living with you. That would just be only for short trips. If they're applying for the F2, remember they have to have their own separate F2 applications with their own separate I-20 forms and their own individual SEVIS registration and ID numbers. And they will also have to show that they will depart the U.S. At the time that that's appropriate. As far as coming for the interview, if the children are below the age of 14, they do not need to come in for the interview. They don't have to physically come in. If they're 14 and older, then they will have to come and be interviewed.
Right. We also had a question regarding the student. He said that he's going to study in the United States, and his parents want to accompany him. So, what type of visa do their parents should get? So it should be, as you already answered, it should be B1 or B2 visa, right?
Right. Yeah. Parents are not eligible to get derivative visas, so they can't get like the F2 or the J2. So if they're going to come visit you, they would need to have a B1, B2 visa.
Yeah, we also have a question from Svetlana. She's asking that she is a Flex alumna who received G1 visa within this as a part of this program. So can I get I-20 DCA if I'm accepted to the United States? I guess she's asking, can she travel to the United States after G1 visa she got?
Okay, so that is a case where you would need to apply for a waiver based on that 2-year rule. You can't do it without a waiver. I believe that there is a waiver process that you can apply for. So you will need to go through to look at the information that's available on the website and see it about how you can apply for a waiver. If you can't find that information, send the specific question so that people can look at what your specific circumstances are and give you the answer that will work in your specific case.
So Anastasia is asking that you said it takes 1 working day for the visa be issued. If there are delays, what would be the latest I could receive my visa? I guess she's trying to get back flight to Russia.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is not something that I can say for anybody, and certainly not ahead of time about a hypothetical case. What I said was, normally it can be done in 1 working day. Often it takes a few days. With some people's cases, there may be complications that require a week or 2 of additional processing. That's not the case for most people. But when you come to the window, if I interview you and I approve your visa, I will say to you at that time, your visa is approved. You should receive it within a couple of days from the courier service. Exactly what day the visa will be printed on depends on a lot of things that are going on and a lot of factors. So it's not possible for me to stand at the window and tell you, you will receive your visa tomorrow. But in most cases, it's either a day or just a few days after.
So this is also a common question we heard a lot from the students. I already have B1, B2 visa and plan to apply for F1 visa. Will both of these visas be valid for me, or will be B1 visa canceled when F1 is issued?
Okay, you can have visas of 2 different classes at the same time. When you apply and when you come to your interview, you should ask your specific question about what you're planning to do and what you want to use the visas for. It's hard to say a blanket statement for everyone because everyone has different things that they plan to do with their visas. But generally speaking, it is possible for you to have visas for 2 different purposes and have them both be valid.
We have a couple of questions that actually can be a myth or when the students apply to US student visa. So Ganem is asking, is it bad to have an empty passport without no visa to stamp at the interview?
No, that's not a problem. It's not a problem. A lot of times people have traveled in the past, but when they come to their interview, they have a brand new passport, so it doesn't have any of the visas or stamps in their passports that they've used in the past. So the consular officer may ask you if you have your old passport, simply because they want to be able to see the stamps from your prior international travel. So generally speaking, it's not a problem if you don't have the old passport or if you just the passport you have doesn't have any other visas or stamps in it. That's not a requirement. It's just something that when the officer is wondering about other international travel that you've done, if you have those old ones, that can be helpful.
Great, thank you. And we also have the similar question. Is it true that if you are refused by Canada for a student permit, it will be shown in the US database and it will badly affect to getting the F1 visa to the United States?
Okay, for this one, I would say what you should be focusing on is the information that you provide in your application and answering the consular officer's questions. We make our decisions based on if you're providing us sufficient proof of those criteria that I've mentioned before. Basically, if you're going to follow the rules of the visa class, and if you intend to depart on time. I wouldn't worry about things outside of that. If you applied somewhere else and were refused a visa, it might be useful for you to consider why you were refused, and that might be something for you to work on, because there is every possibility that a consular officer will see the same thing that was seen by some other country. But what you need to be concerned about is providing honest, truthful, and complete information, answering questions, and basically showing that you'll meet the requirements.
Yeah, thank you. And also, Murtaza is asking this question, and I saw that it's like we need to respond to it, because this might be one of the reasons why the visa may be denied. Will F1 interview be in English, or it's not important?
In most cases, the F1 interview will be in English. And the reason I say in most cases is because in most cases, English proficiency is a requirement to get the visa. So in order for you to demonstrate your English proficiency, you will need to, conduct the interview in English. That is not true for most English as a second language programs. And if you are applying for one of those, you will probably see on your I-20 when you look at it, it says that English proficiency is not a requirement for the program because the purpose of the program is to develop English proficiency. So if it's for English as a second language, you will not have to do that interview in English. But for pretty much all others, anything where English is required is a requirement to get the visa. That is an important way that we will verify that you're proficient in English. So yes, in most cases.
Yeah, great. So I also had a question related to this one. The students ask, what type of visa should I apply if I'm going to ESL program?
Yeah, ESL programs tend to be, it's a full-time English as a second language program. Those tend to be F1 visas.
Okay, so we have from Julia, they're clarifying about your G1 visa. Is it possible just to postpone the 2-year rule after G1 visa and not to waive it? I was told that there should be a waiver only when applying for immigrant visa, but not for non-immigrant visa.
I would say that you should send your specific situation in a question that explains what your individual situation is to get that answer, because I think that there's some specifics involved that wouldn't necessarily apply across the board.
Great. I think I will take the last question. Should I translate all necessary documents for visa application to English?
I'm just trying to think of which documents would need to be translated. The documents that I've been talking about tend to already be in English. I would say, there's people bring a lot of different items to show, maybe to try to show that they are able to cover the financial costs and things like that. If you're referring to those kinds of documents, there is no requirement for you to translate those kinds of documents. If you're expecting, for them to be considered, it might be helpful if they've been translated, but it's certainly not a requirement. In fact, there's no requirement for you to provide a lot of the documents that people bring in. But if you do bring them in and you want to make it easier for them to be used, it's always easier when they're in English. But that's not absolutely necessary. We can certainly read them in Russian. We can we can get the information from them that we need to get. So no, you do not have to.
After when the US visa is issued, can I get it myself from embassy, or should it be? It would be mailed.
We use a courier service to deliver passports with visas that we've printed. That's how we send them out. If there were some reason that someone needed to come to the embassy, I mean, I think the best thing would be to arrange with the courier service the pickup point where you would like to get it. Would actually be much easier than trying to get back into the embassy. So when we, if your visa is approved, we will provide you the contact information, which I think you probably can already find somewhere else. But we will certainly, when it's approved, provide you with information about how to contact the courier service and arrange delivery with them.